Welcome in to the newest episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. Glad to have you here with us, joining us for episode 107 of the pod. And it's all about Skeleton Crew today, as it probably will be for the next 7 weeks as well. Exciting time to be a Star Wars fan, getting to talk about this new show, of course. Going to be all in today's episodes, talking about the breakdown of the first and second episode of this series. Before we get into that, I want to give you a quick reminder that if you're not yet subbed to the Hot Hangout podcast, check us out on YouTube for the video version of the podcast, as well as the reactions to all of our all the latest Star Wars shows, including our reactions to Skeleton Crew, which at the time of the release of this episode on YouTube, the first episode of our reaction to the first episode, there's the words, are also available on YouTube, and our second reaction to episode 2, I should say, will be available later this weekend. Additionally, you can contact us via email at hothhangout@gmail.com with Star Wars thoughts or questions, and we'd love to showcase them on the podcast. You can also find us on both Apple and Spotify and anywhere you get your pods. And if you're listening on a platform that allows you to leave a 5-star review, leave a 5-star review on the podcast. We'd appreciate it very much. And it also allows it to be more easily discovered by other people that love Star Wars as well. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and X on each of the socials at Hoth Hangout on those platforms. You can find the link to the link, I should say, to the Hoth Hangout community Discord server down in the show notes of today's episode. And we are moving right into the conversation today with our viewer teaser question. Did you enjoy the premiere of Skeleton Crew? What were your thoughts on the first and second episodes of the show? I think it's safe to say that the reception was probably, maybe more than just probably, a lot warmer than the reception to the Acolyte, Joey. But what were your thoughts after the first and second episodes of Skeleton Crew?
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the Rotten Tomato score was fresh. I think it was 94% or something like that. So I think
Wow.
I think it's hitting the fans right in the feels and the vintage retro feels, because that's what it did for me. And I thought it was a fun time. We're gonna talk a lot about some questions that we had, and a little bit of the deeper discussions on some of the characters. But this is kind of exactly what I was expecting from it. Really,
It's actually up to 95%, jumped another
95%.
percent. Yeah,
Look at that.
that's pretty incredible. I can't remember. Well, no, actually, now that I say that, probably most Star Wars shows recently. I was gonna say I couldn't remember the last Star Wars show where the audience score was lower than the critic score, and then I thought about it and I was like, wait,
That's exactly what it
probably
is.
that's probably most Star Wars shows recently.
Right.
But the audience score is actually really high as well. It's in the mid 80s right now, at 84%, I believe, when I checked.
Hmm.
So not
Don't ruin
just
it,
the
Star Wars fans. Don't ruin it. Just
yeah,
sit back and enjoy.
sit back and enjoy. I mean, that's kind of the vibe about this show. I think the
Hmm.
feedback that so many people are giving is that just feels good to have this 80s style, a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of a childhood adventure sort of a story. It feels low stakes, which is why I think for the majority of people it's felt enjoyable, because it's not like, oh, you're gonna break the lore, you're gonna ruin this, or that character doesn't do that thing. It's like all brand new characters learning about this new planet. There's so many unknowns with this show. We'll talk a lot about them today, but I think it's pretty safe to say that the first two episodes were pretty widely successful. I think especially the first episode was
Hmm.
fantastic. But we'll talk about both of them here today. During the next 6 to 7 weeks, each time we're doing our podcast episodes where we'll be reviewing the episodes for that week of Skeleton Crew, we're gonna forego news segments for the coming weeks during the Skeleton Crew timeline and skip straight ahead to viewer comments from our recent episodes. Last week we did our preview, our 1 week away preview of Skeleton Crew. Had a couple comments we wanted to showcase from those of you listening to the podcast or watching it on YouTube, I should say. One from John Locke said in response to last week's podcast, nowadays we all expect the worst, so not hard to exceed that. But I'm still looking forward to watching this with my kids. Maybe. Yeah, I mean that kind of is is I guess a rightly pessimistic way to look at Star Wars. Is that fair
Sure.
to say?
I mean,
Like,
it's
yeah,
it's I understand the where they're coming from.
yeah. It's kind of just the sentiment amongst many fans nowadays. Sad to say, but this is a great family show. Like, if I was going to like pick a show that I thought, like every single kind of a person in a family would be able to enjoy, it might end up being Skeleton Crew. It just feels like a show for the whole family, and excited to see what the rest of it has to offer too. And we also had another comment from Flux Crazy Gaming. Flux Crazy Gaming said, "I don't normally tune into any podcasts. Well, welcome, by the way, we should say. So this is new for me, but I appreciate the chill tones and vibes for this thus far, as it starts due to my stress and anxiety not always being balanced. I'm very excited for the show. Same with my mom. We've been watching each trailer and teaser. Bought a bunch of drinks and snacks for both me and Ma when it's going to be. We've also been watching Stranger Things in the meanwhile as we're waiting for this release. May the force be with you always. Shout out to you, Flux Crazy Gaming. I hope you and your ma enjoyed the premiere as much as Joey and I did. And is there a new season of Stranger Things that just came out? When did the new season come out, Joey? Do you know?
Oh, I'm not even sure. I haven't. I'll be honest. I don't even remember if I watched the last season, which is season 4. Is it season was is the last season season
Yeah.
5? Is that where we're at now?
Season 4 was the most recent one, and I know I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Season 5 comes out next year, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
see
A
a
date.
date anywhere.
Well, I gotta
So,
say, I think
yeah,
this is the right move to watch something like Stranger Things going into this show
yeah,
here. So, very very much the same aesthetics, very much the same style of, I don't know, just the tones and everything. It just feels very 80s. So, I think that's a good call by Flex Crazy Gaming. But yeah, welcome in and thanks for the new sub to the channel.
yeah, definitely welcome in. And appreciate the comment about the chill tones and vibes. That's what we go for, you know?
I like when you said that you lowered your voice even a little bit more chill and more vibe. You know what I
We're
mean?
here for the chill tones and vibes. Last comment we wanted to showcase is from Anthony, YouTube fan. Welcome back in, Anthony, a frequent watcher of the podcast. Oh, gentlemen, you know I'm excited for Skeleton Crew. I've loved the most recent marketing for the Disney Plus series. As I suspected, the series will be a love letter to first generation Star Wars fans and all the Star Wars fans who came after. Seeing the director's discussion on YouTube made me feel even more excited and confident about the quality prospects for this Mando-verse tale. These folks know what they're doing, unlike a very recent fever dream of a Star Wars miniseries that we were subjected to.
Hmm.
And I absolutely agree. The Ninth Jedi needs to continue. Honestly, if a full-length animated Star Wars picture were to be released in theaters, uh, I would most definitely want a 2-hour follow-up to the excellent 20-minute first Star Wars Visions short film. That's right, because in that episode we also did a little segment in our news portion about the new announcement of Visions season 3. Anthony went on to say, "Without question, I care more about and I'm more intrigued by those characters than the ones from the sequel trilogy. Right after finishing it, I immediately imagined this story takes place 200 years after the sequel trilogy, that the person Margrave Juro is taking Kara to help find her father is the General of Mandalore." Man, the lore that
The
Anthony's coming
lore,
up with here.
Anthony is killing it right here.
Yeah, I love it. 275-year-old Mandalorian Jedi Din Grogu. That would be perfect. I actually want a multimedia campaign for the Ninth Jedi, comprising of a novel, a comic series, and a feature film. Happy Thanksgiving, guys! Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving to you
Thanksgiving.
too, Anthony. Yeah, hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I guess this is our first episode since. Well, I guess the last episode came out on Thanksgiving. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah. Once again, Happy Thanksgiving and
Yeah,
part of
Anthony, good luck on your application to Lucasfilms with that one, with this
yeah.
comment actually.
I need the full length Ninth Jedi fan fiction that we can then submit to Lucasfilm, like you said, Joey.
Hmm.
But we appreciate your comment and yeah. Side note, Vision season 3. Stay excited for it. No release date officially yet. Hopefully May the 4th. Gonna be around the corner soon. We asked you in last week's podcast episode, will you be watching Skeleton Crew? 82% of people on YouTube said yes. 100% of people over on X said yes. So I think it's safe to say that the decision to watch has been a good one, at least up to this point. Knock on wood, I don't see the trajectory of this show going downward, too much at the very least. But I think there's a lot to be excited about, and much to be said that the majority of folks who responded to these polls are also of the same mind, and that they're going to be watching it. And hope those that said yes enjoyed the episodes as we did. So, um, that about does it for our polls and viewer comments, and we're gonna move just directly into our discussion of the first two episodes. Uh, we've touched on kind of the themes so far about it being, Goonies like, 80s feeling, all these different sort of homages to what film maybe used to be 30, 40 years ago. So I guess to start with some of the characters of the show, um, the two most lovable friends, Wim and Neil, especially Neil. I said it like a couple
Mm-hmm.
times during our reaction. Neil is like pole vaulting, catapulting, whatever the verbiage is, his way into like my list of 10 favorite Star Wars characters
Yes.
already. He is just so fun. He provides humor that doesn't feel forced. Because it's coming from a kid, it doesn't feel, again, forced or weird. It's just like this lovable kid who, like, is a little bit oblivious, but that's part of why you love him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the main character, the actor who's playing Wim, is actually really great as well. I don't mean to like only say that Neil's good. I think they're both amazing. I think I just kind
Mm-hmm.
of have that
Oh
particular
yeah.
love for the character of Neil. What do you think about these two guys?
Yeah, I feel the same sentiments with Neil as well. But to go over to Wim, he is kind of the main character. You see a lot of his vantage point of what's going on, and it seems like he's going to be the one that kind of gets them into trouble more than the
Mhm.
rest. He's the one that pushed the button. He's the one that found the what he thought was a Jedi temple, but it ended up being a starship. And it seems like it's always going to be him. I don't want that to like really be his part, if you know what I mean. Like
Right.
constantly being it. If they traded off between maybe even these two, it would be fine. The other two, I feel like just they just seem older, so you kind of want them to be more leaders, more show me the way type of thing. Where these two are, they're like more like kid like, more just amazed by everything that they see. And especially the best part, when they did the lightsaber fight right in the middle of the street there, before their their transport came to before going to school. So I think that these kids are just great. I think this is a good cast. I think they did a
Mhm.
really good job with these two, and and going back to Neil. Now that I talked about Wim, going back to Neil, I mean he's just so funny, and just the timings there. You kind of expect certain things from him too, and he nails it too when he does it. So yeah, I think they're good actors, and they're very fit for the roles.
Let it be known, by the way, that corny humor works really well when you have talented child actors. I think it usually falls flat when you're having like corny humor from adult actors, and it has a heartwarming sentiment when you allow these really talented kids to sort of
Hmm.
partake in that. I think I kind of resonate too with what you were saying about Wim being the one who's gotten them in trouble up to this point more than once. The thing that bugged me about Wim is that there was at least 1 or 2 times where he straight up just lied. He's like, I didn't
I,
press anything, guys. I didn't press anything,"
but it's so something a kid would do though. So
Right,
I
yeah,
can I
yeah.
can appreciate, even though maybe like morally you don't want to show your kids this and be like, well, see what happened there. But I think that's a very genuine kid move there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just in the moment. I was like, "Come on, Wim, you pressed that button." But yeah, it is something obviously like a kid would do, like, "Oh, no, I messed up. I can't tell my friends that I messed up, so I'm gonna lie," even if it was just like an in the moment sort of thing. Um, I would add too, I I I don't see KB, being the person that causes any
Sure.
strife or mishaps within this foursome of these, I don't really know if you would call them friends at this point,
Right.
but this foursome right now. Um, I could see Fern making some sort of like poor
Sure.
decision
Yeah.
at
A
some
little
point in this show.
overconfidence at something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like KB is the cool, like analytical,
Almost like
calculated.
calculated, right? That's exactly what I was gonna say. Like
Yeah,
all her moves are calculated. She knows exactly what she's doing, and there's a reason
right.
behind it.
Yeah, Fern is kind of like the bad girl trying to prove her mom wrong vibe.
Hmm.
So she's gonna make a poor decision at some point,
Hmm. Let me ask you this: who are each of them in like the original trilogy?
Oh, this is a great question. Oh, okay, let's see. So I don't know if there's a trying to think of who would be the best correlation for KB because I feel like she
3PO.
stands out. Oh yeah, I could see that.
3PO.
Okay, I like that. Fern Fern feels a little bit like on
Yeah,
maybe.
I would have put her with Han also. Yep.
Yeah, like a little bit of a like rebellious. No pun intended, because he didn't want to join the rebels at first, but
Hmm.
Uh, and then hey, Neil. I don't know. Maybe Neil is like R2. I'm trying to think of who else is like a lovable,
Yeah.
oblivious. Although R2 is not oblivious. I don't
Yeah.
know if
Right.
they're
I don't know if there's a Neil in the original trilogy.
like the version of Yoda that we meet at first on Dagobah before we realize he's actually wise, like the one
Wait,
who's all
wait.
goofy.
Is that foreshadowing? Maybe.
That Yoda is in this show, or that Yoda is related to Neil.
No, that Neil is the actual the jet the one that's going to become on the top as the most wise that we
What
don't
if
even.
the scene at the end of episode 2 where we're led to believe that um that Jod is like moving this key, what if it's actually Neil the
If it's
whole time?
Neil the whole and he didn't realize it, yes.
That'd be amazing. Oh, that's a good question though. And then Wim would, I think the obvious choice for Wim is Luke. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to like reach beyond the home place that he's from, like always
Mm-hmm.
seeking something outside. That's very Luke-esque.
Mm-hmm. Although
Um,
he wasn't the one that needed the power converters, it was Fern.
oh, that's a good point. Yeah. But they didn't have
Just
any
throwing it all
Tashi
around.
Station to
Yeah.
go pick those up at though. Did you have besides the two guys, if you were to, well, I guess let me put it this way. It's really early to know, so it might be an unfair question. And maybe I would imagine it might be really different, 6 weeks from now. If you had to rank the four characters in
Mm-hmm.
terms of just how much you enjoy the character, how would you rank them?
I think I would go. I think I would go. Obviously, Neil would go first,
Yeah.
and you're gonna appreciate like the last one here. So I would go Neil, and then actually KB, because I like the techie side, and they're just
Uh-huh.
I've always liked that character, just like trying to ground everyone else. So I kind of like that. And then it would be Fern,
Oh, interesting.
and then it would be Wim, because
Okay.
you know Star Wars and their formula of trying to create heroes. They're kind of a little bit like, what are you doing? Like, you've got Luke, you've got Rey, you've got Ezra, and then you just have these people like Ahsoka even, like you're just like right at the beginning, you're like but give me some time, and I'm sure Wim's gonna climb the ladder for sure.
Yeah, on one hand, I find myself shaking my head at Wim, like, "Come on, buddy, why'd you make that decision?" But on the other hand, I really am enjoying him as a character. I don't know. For me, it would be tough to rank them. I feel like, to be fair, we also haven't got enough from KB, especially, to
Yeah.
know more
She
about the
has the thing. She
character.
has the tech. That's what I always like
Right,
those types of things.
right.
So
Like she
that's my
definitely has
reason.
that coolness factor, that tech vibe. But I hope we get to learn more about her character at some point. She's not just kind of this, supplementary character that doesn't have much of a backstory. Um, but to reiterate kind of what we've already talked about with the characters, these child actors are really amazing. This is what I think people are going to look at when Skeleton Crew is done and think, like, this is what makes the show good, is because there's no, I don't want to, I wanted to say there's no standard trying to be met, but I don't want to make it seem like it's not good.
Hmm.
It's just like there's a part of it's built into the plot, honestly. It's this hidden secretive planet. There's
Hmm.
no other characters we've ever been exposed to, so there's no preconceived notions of like, well, this thing needs to fit in this box, or
Hmm.
Like, if that character does that, that's not what that character would do
Right,
based
right.
off of this. It's just new characters. They're fun, they're enjoyable. It's low stakes for the most part. There's also mystery involved, which adds extra layers of
Yeah.
intrigue. I mean, this is I can see myself 6 weeks from now, Joey, looking at Skeleton Crew saying, "This is the best season of a Star Wars television show." Now, let me add a caveat to that. I think Mandalorian will always be more Mando season 2 will always be more of like a um Mando season 2 is a great Star Wars show. I think Skeleton Crew will be a great show that happens to be Star Wars.
Right. And I think that's a lot of people's sentiment is, well, I don't know though, because now that you've brought this At Attin and the barrier and all of that, I mean, that really is that's adding something,
Mhm.
to the lore. It's adding. So I think we're all going to say that now, but I bet by the end of the season, something is going to like tip us over and be like, actually, remember with Bad Batch, how we were just like,
Yeah.
this is fine, but then as we kind of went through the seasons, we were like, oh, this is actually pretty important. I have a feeling that they're gonna do something like that with this, and if they do, I would have to agree with you that it's gonna go up there as one of the top seasons of TV of Star Wars TV.
Well, and I think in terms of like timeline stuff, this takes place in the same year that The Mandalorian takes place.
Mm-hmm.
So a crossover at some point in this show is plausible, and I would also make the case that a crossover at some point in a future show or film, if it's Mando and Grogu movie, is more than just plausible. It's probably probable. Um, and with that in mind, I hope that this show doesn't become just like a connecting point to like, Marvelize this
Mm-hmm.
era
Mm-hmm.
of Star Wars. Like, look, we're bringing it all together. Look how it
Right, right.
fits. And then it,
But
and then
but
yeah,
but Favreau, Dave Filoni, this being a part of everything,
hmm
they're not going to just let this be its own thing. This is going to have some type of connection, especially with, let's be honest, the Mandoverse is, Filoni's baby, right? Or
hmm
Jon Favreau's baby. So they're going to want, if this is going to be set in that era, after Return of the Jedi, before, right, Force Awakens, then that there's going to be something, that this was on purpose. There's a little
yeah,
bit of planning on
yeah.
it. Maybe it's a one little seed in there, but it's gonna make its way. I mean, look at Acolyte, what it was supposed to be. I mean, you brought Plagueis in it, for crying out loud. You knew that was gonna be like a huge thing, but
hmm
the unfortunate ending of that. But so I think there's, as much as we keep saying like, oh, this just happens to be in Star Wars universe, I have a feeling that it's going to be more.
I don't mind if they do tie it in. I just don't want this being tied into the Mandalorian to like
Right.
if this does end up being a really good show, which I feel like it's headed that direction. I don't want it tying it into the Mandalorian to be like, look how we like this great show, we made it into like the side piece for the for our
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
main
yeah.
product of Mando and Grogu or whatever.
Right, right.
Um, but I don't know. It remains to be seen. I do you think we'll see Mando in this season of Skeleton Crew?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm
That
not
would
getting
be,
that
yeah.
vibe. Yeah,
Mm-mm. They're not going to pull a
but
Boba Fett in this one, I don't think.
I do think at some point we're gonna get a reveal of a character that we are familiar with.
Sure.
Because that just feels like it feels like an itch that Star Wars has to scratch in every show that they do. So who that it's gonna be, I don't know exactly. Do you have any theories?
Bo-Katan. Let's say Bo-Katan.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
yeah.
fun.
Like, I mean,
By the way,
because at this point, not really, you know, because if it's like is it starting around season 1 of Mandalorian? Is that the timeline we're in right here? So
Mando,
Bo-Katan wasn't
yeah,
really introduced that early on, right? So
right, right,
so she could be somewhere else. She could be around this area.
yeah, yeah. Um, Kind of back to sort of the theme of the movie being this, um, almost like homage or love story to films of the '80s, like Goonies is the one that it keeps getting uh related to. I don't know what it is about that decision, but when it was announced all the way back, I was like, I mean, I'm obviously gonna watch this show, but there's nothing about it that when it was announced, I was like, okay, I wasn't as excited as a lot of the other things that they announced with it, like other shows, I should say. And now that I've seen the first few episodes, I feel like I want to go back in time and just say to that version of myself, like, just this is gonna be a great show. Just, just, just relax. This will be amazing.
Yeah, you
And
put
I,
Acolyte above this.
oh, in terms of what I was most excited for,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, at the
I mean, I did too.
time,
I mean, I did
definitely,
too.
yeah,
Obviously, yeah. But
yeah. Before it came out, I was way more excited about Acolyte than Skeleton Crew, and I think I can safely say after 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew, like this is and I don't just mean better in terms of like personal preference. I'm saying like better in terms of objectively, this show is more well made. The plot makes more sense. The writing is better.
hmm
It flows nicely. There's just so many things about this that are superior, I would say, to the quality of the Acolyte. Um, Feelings aside about how much you liked or didn't like the show itself, but is there anything in regards to the '80s aesthetic of it that you're hoping to get from the remaining 6 episodes?
I mean, just the the way that this is like their adventure. I think that's a huge thing. What you just kind of see it from their eyes, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when it's what I think of when I think of Goonies or E.T. I think of the how the world looks from the eyes of like children, and their adventure. I mean, even Wim, was pretty much saying like, I wanted to go out and I wanted to see this adventure. I want to have an adventure. Don't you guys want an adventure?
Mm-hmm.
Even in the moment, something that we've seen so many times because we watch Star Wars, when they hit space, they're just like, what are those? Like they have no idea what
Yeah.
stars are, because of the barrier or whatever it is, and they just have no idea. And to see it like up close, I mean, just like little moments like that, because when you're, if you're thinking as an adult and you're writing for children, you have to think as a child, right? So I appreciate those little moments like that where, what would a kid say, at this point, if they were in space, especially if they were completely surrounded by a barrier. Oh, what are those? I have no idea what those are. So
Mm-hmm.
just things like that. I think that to keep it genuine to that that lens where you could see it from there, I think that's great. And a great thing about this show is also the score. Just very
Definitely.
80s coded, very, just even the way they, not even like the full like, orchestra or whatever, but just even little moments when like when he's like about to push the button, he's just like, so if you go back and listen to that, it's very similar to something you would hear in the 80s, and
That synth
that's,
sound.
yeah, exactly, the synth sound, exactly. So just things like that, just to keep it in that era. Um, but yeah, so yeah, it was, me being a kid of the 80s, I thought it did a great job. And to even if it is an homage to all that those like first generation Star Wars fans, if that's truly what it is, I feel like that first generation of Star Wars fans have felt a little bit pushed aside
Mm-hmm.
over the past few movies, few shows and all that. So I feel like that's nice to to give them that, and I hope that that's what they're feeling as well.
Last thing I'll also say about the '80s, did you see I mean, we pointed it out in our reaction, our episode 1 reaction, the homage to the Star Wars holiday special in there?
Yes, I already forgot about that, but yes, that was perfect. I I got a little PTSD just watching that again. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just
At,
remembered it
at
all
least they
come
picked
rushing back.
Yeah, at least they picked a part of the holiday special that was not just ridiculous
Yeah.
to make an homage to. Like Like if we would have had a Wookiee walk on screen with a VR set, I would have been like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, where are we headed
Here we
with
go.
this?" Yeah,
Or just breaking the song just out of nowhere.
yeah. Again, if you've never seen the Star Wars Holiday Special and you're a Star Wars fan, do yourself a favor, or maybe it's not a favor, but do yourself some education of what Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars could have been at one point in time.
Right. Yes.
It's out there. Actually, we have a reaction to it on YouTube. If you want to watch our reaction,
Yeah.
it's up there
It's a
too.
good one.
So yeah, that was an interesting time. Another thing about this show that's interesting is kind of the concept of what the planet is, the home planet of At Attin that the foursome of kids is from. Seems to be like this mythological place of secret treasure to everyone else in the galaxy who's not from this planet. The currency they use that we see is Republic currency, Old Republic currency, I should say, not currency used by the New Republic, indicating that the people of this planet at Attin are insulated from the rest of the world. Like this is Old Republic currency, and the show is taking place after the fall of the Empire, and so the fact that the Empire wouldn't have like confiscated these credits when they rose to power at the end of Episode 3, and between the third or between the prequel and the original trilogy, means that this planet, the and inhabitants may or may not even be aware of the fact that there was an empire. Like they may think that the Republic is still, just kicking and doing well, um, and that also begs the question that we wanted to kind of talk about a little bit. Is that, I mean, what's your opinion on this, Joey? Do you think the citizens, maybe what level of awareness do the citizens have about
Mm-hmm.
what goes on outside this barrier that seems to both shield people from coming in, but also keep them from going out?
I have a couple of thoughts on it. So the one thought is, they have Wim has that data pad that has a
Mhm.
lot of like stories from the Jedi or from the Sith there, and I don't read Arabic, so I don't know exactly what any of those are about, but it seems like there are stories going on. Now, I don't can I say, and you even mentioned there's one that kind of looked like maybe Luke and a Rancor, maybe, I don't know. So if that's the case, then yeah, then they do know that of all the things that are happening outside of their planet, outside of the barrier. Now here's my crazy conspiracy thought
I love these.
is something that, and if you want to go 80s, this is very 80s, is is not where is this planet, but when.
Oh, we're doing
Yeah.
some lost stuff here,
Yeah,
some
some lost
alternate
stuff,
timeline.
some Back to the Future, whatever, right? So is it possible that we're not talking about, the people don't know, that, or they don't believe in, where At Attin is, or even because even the droid Shmi had no recollection of it, and these droids know all of this stuff, and so what does that mean? Either it never existed, or maybe it was like before its memory bank or whatever. So that
Mhm.
there are a couple thoughts there, but I like jumping into these like really outlandish ones. So maybe it's not a where question, but when.
Like the barrier passing in and out of it, like transports you to a different time, is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
That I could be game for that. I mean, it's not dissimilar to stuff that we've seen in Star Wars in the past few years with the World Between Worlds and Ahsoka and the end of Rebels season 4.
Mm-hmm.
What if Skeleton Crew is the connecting point
Oh my!
for the World Between Worlds
Can you imagine?
storyline?
There it is. The what we did not think was going to be it. Just like cloning and Bad Batch. This is the World Between Worlds and
Yeah,
Skeleton Crew.
you're gonna release like a retroactive episode of that scene where Ezra's fighting the Emperor in the World Between Worlds, and you're gonna look through one of the little portals and you're gonna see Wim and Neil just running around in the
Yeah.
background.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what level of awareness the citizens have. Here's a question: Do you think the citizens of At Attin and the government, whoever is like the government leaders of this planet, do you think they have the same level of awareness of what goes on outside the barriers.
No, I think the government probably knows a little bit more. I mean, we saw like the usage of like security droids like all over the place.
Yeah.
Um, it just seems like a very locked down type of arena. I did see a video I was watching. I don't know if you watched Screen Crush on
Hmm.
YouTube, but yeah, they were doing their Easter egg thing, and I was looking at it, and they were talking about how, and we even mentioned it during the reaction, is like these kids are taking a test that is basically going to just give them this is the rest of your life here. Very similar to like what you saw with the clones when they were
Hmm.
on like Camino, just kind of that kind of same setup, like all the kids in one spot. And so if it's something like that, obviously Old Republic, if you want to talk about that, it's very, very Old Republic type of, um, uh, uh, way of learning, if you will. So I think it's possible that they just go that way, where it's just not, they're not exactly, um, where's my thought? They don't exactly know what they're kind of fighting for. Almost, they're just like, we're here to do a job, because I mean that's kind of what they're doing. Like, we're here to do a job, and that's what the ultimate goal is for all of them on that planet is. And I forgot, they even mentioned it. They gave a term for it.
Oh yeah, like the great work or
Yeah, the
something
great work.
like
Right,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So something like that. So I mean, that sounds very, militarized almost. Like, it's just like, okay, this is
Right.
what we need to do, and each person will have their job for our world.
It almost sounds like a little bit like to put it in our like real world, you know, ideologies. It almost sounds a little bit like communistic.
Yeah,
Can I
yeah,
say that?
yeah. You're not
Like
wrong.
we're all just working for the great work. It sounds that way. I mean, obviously the planet doesn't appear that way because it's like dystopian and whatever. But um, I don't know. That was like a thought that came to my mind when I heard the great work. I was like, huh. I
How
wonder
about
what
that?
that is. Like, who's the person in power, and what does great work mean to the person who is in the position of power in this show? Um, Maybe we'll find that out next episode. Maybe we won't. Um, Something that we definitely will be finding out next episode is more about uh, who Jod actually is and who Captain Silvo is. Captain Silvo. By the way, the intro to the first episode was
Yeah.
really fun. I
Yes.
liked the pirate aesthetic. I liked the vibes of that. Um, I feel like it's really telegraphed that Captain Silvo is Jod. Um, I don't think they're trying to like hide or conceal that. Like, yes, it will feel like a quote unquote surprise, but it feels like a surprise that's like, well, yeah, that's
Yeah, we all
pretty
know.
yeah, yeah. And so I don't think they're really trying to conceal that from us. I think the bigger secret um, is he actually a Jedi?
Hmm.
We see him at the end of the episode using the Force to move the key.
Oh, it was Neil.
Um, yep, yep.
Maybe it was Neil using the Force.
Maybe it was Neil using the Force. That would be like such a fun. Were we talking about that on the podcast, or was that before the podcast?
No, that was on. Yeah, we were
That was
talking
on.
about it. Yeah, yeah. We were just talking about that.
it's
Yeah.
it's been a long week, let me tell you, and it's only Wednesday that we're recording this. Um, yeah, because you and I were having a short conversation
Yeah.
before the podcast too. We do pre-podcasts before the
Right.
podcast,
Yeah.
by the
And
way.
then at some point we're like, you know what? We have to save it for the
Yeah,
pod.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I that would be fun if it was one of the four kids who ends up being the one who actually moved the key. Um, so yes or no? I know I'm leaning towards no, just because I feel like it's too on the nose for him to show up. He's been in this cave, and like the first thing he does is like just out himself as a Jedi to these kids. Yes or no? Is Jod actually a Jedi?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, if he goes back and he is Captain Silvo, not very Jedi like. I don't think that would be. I'm kind of depending. I'm basing my opinion based off of that, assuming that Captain Silvo is also Jod.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that question in that
Okay.
case. Is Jod a Force user?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I would think to have a show in Star Wars universe and have him do this, if he gets the key, and him to not have the Force user, it would just be dumb. Like, why would you do that? Why would you put the show in that situation? I feel like that wouldn't be a good call.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was
I mean, the
thinking.
only thing I would think of like that did do that was that in Obi-Wan where uh
There's a
the
lot of things about that
yeah,
show.
was it an Obi-Wan? Well, I can't remember the character's name, but it was Kamal. He was pretending
Oh,
to be a Jedi.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, and he had like all these tricks, whatever, to make it look like he was a Jedi. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
this is that because you don't want your leads to be like a joke. You know what I mean? So I don't think, or like a con artist, because that would be essentially a con artist, right?
Right.
To pull off something like that. So I don't think that's what they would go, especially with a kids show. Um, so that's why I would say he is a Force user because of what he did in the second episode.
Okay. I am on the fence on this actually.
Really?
I just think I think the direction where I could see this going is like from the perspective of Wim. Wim is like, I just want to explore. I want to go on this adventure. I want to meet Jedi. I want to I want to do the things that I'm playing with my best friend Neil out in the universe. And they meet this guy. He seems like he's a Force user. Like, oh, is this guy a Jedi? I just feel like there's almost like a little bit of a like too good to be true element from the
Sure.
perspective of Wim. Like he's clearly gonna look up to this guy. He's gonna immediately idolize him. Like, oh my gosh, this guy just moved this key without touching it using the Force. And I just feel like it's setting it up for there to be this conversation like 3 or 4 episodes from now where he puts his hand on Wim's shoulder and he's like, in the Harrison Ford kind of way, hey kid,
Yeah.
I'm not actually a Force user, or I don't
Yeah.
know. That's just kind of what I'm spitballing right now. I'm definitely on the fence though. I could see them
Mm.
going either way with it.
How
But
would you explain the key move then?
I that's the thing. I think if they had to explain the key moving, there would be some other either person moving it or trick to it that
Mm-hmm.
again, it just it doesn't make a ton of sense in the 30 seconds of it that we
Yeah,
got.
you're right.
Like he's in this cave. He's been there. These 4 kids show up and he's like, all right, now's the time to break out. And is like maybe you mentioned maybe it's because they have a ship. Could
Mm-hmm.
be. I mean, if this guy is actually a powerful Force user, why does he need to wait for, 4 kids to show up with a ship in order to escape? I don't know. Something just seems off about it that he would wait to reveal that in front of them while he's been in the cave already. It
Right.
just
Yeah.
seems something's not 100% right there. But and I don't even know if we'll get that answer probably next episode, even
Oh,
though
I
it
wouldn't
feels
think
like
so
we
either. Yeah, they're
should.
they're gonna drag that one out a little bit longer.
Yeah, but that would probably be one thing I'd be most interested in hearing feedback from those of you listening and watching too. Is not only did you enjoy the premiere, but like what do you think of the character of Jod, especially like who is he? Where do you think they're going with his character?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is he a Jedi? Is he not? Is he a Force user? Is he not? I mean, on the surface, I think he does look like a Force user right now. Definitely less certain that he's a Jedi. Um, but those are all kind of questions that are up in the air right now with the character. And it provides that element of intrigue and mystery that this show has going for it. One of the most positive things about it, I would argue. And I'm so excited for this show in a way that I didn't expect to be, Joey. I don't know. How are you feeling going into episode 3 next week?
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I wasn't not looking forward to the premiere because it's new Star Wars, but I think I had my expectations pretty low. Where like, listen, I know that this is, and kind of what we were saying. This is a story that happens to take place in the Star Wars universe. I was very much expecting that, and without really understanding what that meant, though. Just
Mhm.
because it's just a story doesn't mean it's not going to be a good story, right? So I think that to have that distinction now that we have an enjoyable story, I think now the sky's the limit. Now my expectations raised a little bit. It could be dangerous in a Star Wars television show, but I'm here for it. I will roll with these kids and see how it goes.
Yeah, me too. I'm pumped. And by the way, because the next episode of this show is coming out on a Tuesday and not a Monday like the premiere 2 episodes did, this is technically the longest we've ever had to wait between the release of Star Wars episodes in a ongoing season of a show. Um, like that whole extra day, what are we gonna do with
What are we gonna do?
ourselves?
I have no idea. Take a nap.
Gotta wait
Travel the
8
world.
days instead of 7 this time. But we would reiterate once again to all those of you watching and listening, did you enjoy the premiere of Skeleton Crew? What do you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? Actually, I mean, this is a question for
Yeah.
you too,
Yeah.
Joey. What do you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh
I think I've
boy.
got my ranking.
You got your ranking? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah. What's your ranking? Let me think about this a little
I,
bit here.
if I was to rate it overall, I would probably say 8.5, and I'm room for growth there. I think episode 1 was a 9. I think
Yeah.
episode
Sure.
2 was an 8.
Yeah.
So average it at 8.5 for
Yeah.
me.
That's good. Yeah. I would probably put it. I'm not gonna split it like hairs like this much, but I'd probably give 8.5 to episode 1 and then 8 to episode 2. So
Yeah.
8.25, I guess, to the average. But yeah, just because I feel like there's a lot more. I
Right.
think there's a lot more, and we've talked about it before. Whenever we do these grades, of each show kind of has its own curve, right? So
I was gonna say the exact same thing. Like, this is not like the scale of like Star Wars. This is the scale of
yeah, yeah,
Skeleton Crew. Like, it was a
right,
really
exactly,
well made first 2 episodes,
right.
and it's hard to put that on the same scale as Andor
Andor, right,
or Ahsoka or Kenobi or all these other shows, Acolyte.
exactly.
But yeah, I like those rankings. Yeah. Yeah, let us know, those of you listening and watching, what do you think the show was? If you want to do each episode individually, feel free to do that too. Let us know down in the comments or on the socials. And on next week's episode, we're continuing along with our weekly synopsises, breakdowns, and recaps of the episodes as we receive them. Episode 108 of the Hoth Hangout podcast will be covering everything that was given to us in the third episode of Skeleton Crew, releasing on Disney Plus on December 10th, at the time of the release of this podcast in 5 days' time. So stay hyped, stay excited for the release of the next episode. Again, not to seem like a Debbie Downer, but we are already 25% of the way through this show. I'm telling you, I say it every time they release one of these silly 8-episode shows. Give us at least 10.
At least 10.
Ideally 12, but at least 10. I need at least 2 more episodes, please, in future shows. That would be my only critique of Skeleton Crew so far, probably, is that I want more episodes of it. So, not that there's any Disney execs listening right now, but
I'm sure one subbed. At least one's a sub here.
on the off chance that anyone listening has any sway with anyone connected to the
Maybe we could.
decision-making process.
Yeah, let's just connect up with Anthony YouTube. Maybe sounds like
Yeah.
he's got some ideas.
Yeah, he'll have the in at Lucasfilm with his story writing capabilities. But we look forward to watching episode 3. Once again, if you haven't watched our reaction to episode 1, that's available on YouTube now. Episode 2 will be available likely on Friday this week, December 6th. And speaking of YouTube, if you're not yet subscribed there for the video version of the podcast, as well as our reactions to all Star Wars shows, including the reactions to each episode of Skeleton Crew as it comes out, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. We'd appreciate it. We are now getting closer and closer to the 500 mark, which would be a huge milestone for us. 37 subs away from that. So we'd really appreciate it. If you're not yet subscribed, head on over there and hit that sub button. You can contact us via email at hothhangout@gmail.com with your Star Wars thoughts or questions, and we'd love to showcase them on the podcast. You can find the Hoth Hangout podcast anywhere you get your pods, including both Apple and Spotify. And if you're listening on either of those platforms or any platform that allows you to leave a 5-star review, leave a 5-star review on the podcast. We'd appreciate it very much, and it also allows it to be more easily discovered by other people that love Star Wars as well. We're on the socials on Instagram, TikTok, and X at Hoth Hangout on each of those platforms. Follow us there for more Hoth Hangout content. And you can check out the Hoth Hangout community Discord server available down in the link. The link is available down in the show notes of today's episode. Lastly, thank you to Gibbo for producing today's video show and assets. who's been feeling under the weather this week. We hope you're feeling better soon, Gibbo, with all the blue or green milk he can find. Ooh, green milk. I don't know. I've never heard of green milk before. Is that a
Yeah. Oh yeah.
is that a Aussie thing?
Oh, I believe so. Yeah. No, I think the green milk was from wasn't it Last Jedi? Isn't that what Luke was
Is that
drinking?
is that green, the stuff he drinks in Last Jedi? I
I
thought
think
it was just
so.
like moldy blue or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it was also green.
You'll probably be sad to hear that I've still only seen The Last Jedi, I think 3 times total.
Oh, I'm not sad. I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, as much as we've talked about the how we feel about the sequel trilogy, so that's not that number's a little high actually.
Technically, it's 2.5 because I started watching it with my
Oh, that's right.
fiance, and we never watched the second half. We need to do that still, by the way. Christmas break, I'm going to do another little watch
There
through.
you go.
So, well, Joey, any last thoughts on first and second episodes of Skeleton Crew before we call it an episode?
No, it was a lot of fun. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Got the '80s vibes that we were expecting. Kind of hit on all the notes. So I think we're good. I think we're good with this one. I think we're good. 95%, right? We said on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's pretty high with '80s and the critics. I've got high hopes for this series, and if they happen to throw in just a little bit of lore into it, give us a little character, a Bo-Katan, maybe a Grogu, I wouldn't hate it.
Me neither. Let us know, everyone listening, your best theories on Ja Na Na Wood, your best theories on At Attin. Let us know what you're thinking and feeling about this show, and we'd love to showcase those thoughts, feelings, and comments on next week's episode. Man, talking today has been off a little bit. Next week's episode of the podcast, we'll showcase those and look forward to hearing from all of you. We appreciate each and every one of you so much for listening to today's episode. Tune into those reactions available on YouTube. And once again, thanks so much for being a watcher or listener. We will catch you all in the next episode or the next reaction. And until then, may the Force be with you.